And we're live.
Welcome back to the Saga of the Clone Saga, aka the Clone Zone. This is a podcast presented by the students of S.H.I.E.L.D., in which we read and talk about the entirety of the infamous 1990s Spider-Man Clone Saga. I'm Matt, and today I'm joined by these two wonderful gentlemen.
My name Vince.
My name Mike.
And today, Vince, do you have a sponsor for this episode?
All right, this episode is sponsored by Valiant Comics, the old Valiant Comics, and here they were kind enough to send us 4 of their great trade paperbacks.
Why were you carrying those with you?
I'm giving them to Mikey for his birthday.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Because I've been trying to get rid of them, and figured he's an optimal choice.
I mean, I actually just like to picture you always carrying around Valiant Comics that you can just books on the subway.
I mean, what I do. This is over long at this point. But what I do is whenever I find an old Valiant trade, I literally buy it every time I find one at a comic store. I mean, they're always in the $5 bin or less, and then I just give them to people.
Thank you to Valiant. Thank you to Valiant, and happy birthday to Mikey. Today we're talking about the story arc Web of Life. All
right, so we're back to Ben Reilly. And this time we're over in Web of Spider-Man 120, 121, and Adjectiveless Spider-Man 54 to 55. I love how people say Adjectiveless Spider-Man, which makes it an adjective and makes it harder to say. But whatever. Yeah. So for Web of, up to this point, we've had the creative team of Terry Cavanaugh and Stephen Butler. And on Spider-Man, we've had Howard Mackey and Tom Lyle. However, and that is the case here, but not really. In the second half of this arc, the teams on both books change a little bit. Todd DeZago takes over the writing for Web of, and Phil Gossier, who we saw, he drew that Spider-Man Unlimited story that we hated. But I think there's something different going on with the inks and the colors and stuff here, so it's slightly different. They're handling Web of. And then Mike Manley handles the art on Spider-Man for the second issue, but Mackey's still writing it. And why are there these creative changes for these 2 issues? I have no idea. It's not totally clear. I don't know if it was scheduling things, delays and stuff like that. And then if those changes were particularly noticeable, we'll mention that when we get to it. So the first issue, Web of. Ben is fighting Tombstone, who we've run into Tombstone on this podcast before. I don't think Matt was on that episode when we were reading some of the Jerry Conway stuff. Matt, you want to give us your thoughts on Tombstone?
I think Tombstone's pretty fine. As far as Spider-Man villains go, he's not the worst. He's not particularly amazing. But there's been some kind of neat stuff with him in the past.
Yeah, I think he's, besides the Kingpin, I think he's one of the better examples of a mob boss kind of character.
He's better than Hammerhead for sure.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Hammerhead has a pretty dumb design compared to Tombstone.
Yeah, I like Tombstone.
I mean, he works as a giant blockbuster character that's big and imposing for Spider-Man to fight.
Yeah. So they're fighting, and Tombstone is broken out of prison. And again, already off the bat, Ben is reminding us that he's not a man, he's a clone. And Tombstone's trying to rob an armored truck. And I like how Ben points out that the truck driver is following protocol. And if you're in an armored truck, you don't stop under any circumstance, especially under a robbery.
Apparently.
And so an editor's note tells us that Tombstone, the last time we saw him was in Spectacular 204 to 206, where he was trying to really be a crime boss. And that arc was called The Death of Tombstone, so obviously that was a misleading title. And then prior to that arc in Spectacular, there was the Maximum Carnage tie-ins, and then before that was J.M. DeMatteis's big Harry Osborn's run. But then before that is the Jerry Conway stuff, which we jumped into a little bit a few episodes ago, and he prominently featured Tombstone. And Matt and I are still waiting on Marvel to put out Spider-Man Tombstone Volume 2.
I cannot wait for it. I mean, that sounded sarcastic. I mean it. I cannot wait for it. It's not happening.
Sadly not. That probably came out like almost 2 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
So New York City, they're all about this Scarlet Spider moniker. The last arc, we basically just saw Ken Ellis penning that for the Bugle. And who's creeping on Ben Reilly now? As usual.
Good old Kane with his dumb 90s hair and dumb 90s costume, and it's great.
And so then we get introduced to the other guy who's creeping on. Well, he's not actually creeping on Ben Reilly, but it ends up with it. We get Kraven's son Vladimir, the Grim Hunter. And what do you guys think about the Grim Hunter's design?
It's terrible.
Yeah, it's not great. I like that they can't decide if he has facial hair or not. That changes between panels.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, like most of the time he's clean shaven, but every once in a while he's got like a little goatee thing going on. It's weird. The metal arm's not that bad. I don't mind that. The rest of his design is it's a lot.
Like again, he's got so many straps and pouches and all that stuff, and like I guess you can make the argument like, oh, he's supposed to be this hunter gimmick character, and like, oh, he needs all the tools for the hunt, but like we never see him use any of the like. He just has all this fucking busy design. It's pretty terrible.
It's awful.
And then we get the terrorist group Ares, and I always love this, just completely terrible acronyms in comic books. Ares stands for Assassination, Revolution, Extortion, and Sabotage.
I've never heard of Ares before.
I didn't even bother checking. I think this is just some really dumb thing. And Ben is stopping them, and he calls them boys with toys that make noise.
He's got to get that Spider-Man banter in there, or I guess try to.
He pulls out his special webbing again, and then I think
special webbing, by the way.
You like it?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I mean, I'm totally down for gimmick webbing for Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't use it. I mean, I want to say you can't use it all the time, but also like if there's only like 3 kinds and stuff like that, and they have distinct purposes, like it's fine and stuff like that.
Yeah, if it's not like it better not be like Homecoming where there's like a web for every situation.
Well, yeah, that's like the that's because of the whole Stark connection thing. But like occasionally Peter will like put together like some web fluid that like is particularly good at like conducting electricity to beat Electro and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's always.
Remember from the Spider-Man PS1 game, he had the fire webbing to beat the symbiotes.
I do not, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, sure.
You had to pick up fire webbing in order to get them. It was pretty cool.
What is fire webbing?
It's a flamethrower.
Like made of fire?
Blasting fire webbing. It was a video game.
It's literally a flamethrower.
It's not a flamethrower if you ask Elon Musk.
Oh, that is awesome. His flamethrower.
Yeah,
it's not a flamethrower.
But I think we picked up that this was hinted in an earlier arc, or maybe I just discussed that it was coming up. But Betty Brant is running into Ben Reilly's arc, and in this first issue, off the bat, we see just that she's fighting over a scoop with Ken Ellis over Ben, and then later they're going to intersect. And I like how there's an entire page in this issue pretty much devoted to telling us to read the Peter Parker arc that's running alongside it.
Yeah.
It's just like, and it's like a constant. I mean, later on, it's like sort of a plot point. But like throughout this arc, I feel like we see Peter Parker like sleeping like 5 times or something. Kind of weird.
Well,
At least
Peter Parker. The thing that I thought was more jarring was the fact that we get a lot of Mary Jane here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was thinking about that.
Right.
Is like obvious. So obviously, there's like 4 ongoing Spider-Man titles. Before the Clone Saga, they all star Peter Parker, and like there's probably, I'm sure there are, besides crossovers, I'm sure there were plenty of fans that were buying all 4, and then some people maybe were just buying 1 or 2 or 3 of them or whatever. But then when the titles split like this, I really wonder like if anyone / how many people are like, oh, I'm just gonna stick to the Peter Parker books, and they're like, screw this Ben Reilly nonsense. Like even like obviously they don't even know like what the editor's goals are and everything like that, but like they just wanted to stick with Spider-Man, like the real Spider-Man with Peter Parker, and so like they miss all this like MJ subplot and stuff like that. And so from that perspective, I guess from Marvel's point of view, it's smart to interlace a lot of the subplots throughout.
I mean, yeah, I guess it kind of makes sense. I don't know, in terms of marketing, in terms of like story.
Well, yeah,
I don't know. MJ doesn't really belong in here.
yeah. And so likewise, as we move forward with the Peter Parker stuff, I mean, I don't know what at this point, I don't know what Ben Reilly stuff like. They don't really have the other side of like Ben Reilly stuff to interlace into Peter. I don't think so, but we'll see if that's the thing.
Yeah.
And so why is Kane following Ben Reilly this time?
Because that's what Kane does.
Yeah,
He's got
but
nothing better to do.
well, it generally yes.
His visions.
Yeah, he has visions, and I guess this is how the MJ gets wrapped in, like we were just talking about, is that he thinks MJ is going to get murdered, and for some reason Kane wants to stop that or needs to stop that. I don't know why. And we get and then back to the actual MJ stuff. So Gail, her sister, says goodbye to her at the airport. And did you pick up on the dialogue between them? It was like so over the top. Gail says she says something like you're truly glowing.
Yeah.
And MJ replies, "It's called family."
Yeah. Okay. No, I didn't notice that.
And so they're now reconciled. MJ reconciled with her dad as well. And
we're never going to see him ever again.
Well, that's the thing. When we said goodbye to MJ's dad, I mentioned how like he basically never shows up again. I may be wrong about this, but Gail, from what I checked, she only has 2 more appearances. One is a flashback in Untold Tales, which doesn't count. And then the second and to date most recent one was in a 2000 issue where all of Peter's friends and family gather to try and make him accept that MJ died in the plane explosion. Because that's from that like Howard Mackie, John Byrne, like soft reboot era. I mean, Matt, you'd be the best one here to know if you can think of any major things that where she's shown up otherwise.
For some reason, I thought she showed up in like Brand New Day era, but I could be completely off base.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm right. I mean, it might not be totally up to date, like if she's shown up in the past like year or 2, but again, I mean, it makes sense. It makes some sense past 2007, obviously, where MJ takes a huge backstep in the story as well.
Right.
But like, I think it's just crazy that between 1994, well, I think we're in 95 now, 95 to 2007, like MJ's family, they're like pretty much never showed up again. It seems super weird to me. And so Grim Hunter, his motivation is he wants to kill Spider-Man because Spider-Man soiled his family name. because his dad wasn't able to kill Spider-Man. But I like how also he's like I also don't respect my dad for killing himself. But then so Grim Hunter's going and trying to find Spider-Man. He kills some cops for no reason.
He also likes to, we find this out later on, he likes to huff in incense in the nude in his very lavish mansion.
Yeah, that was another thing his dad did. I guess that wasn't the family.
Yeah. So then we get Ben connecting with Betty Brant, and I guess she has her own garden, so she's doing all right for a reporter.
Her garden's labeled. The sign says Betty's Garden. I don't know.
Yeah, I noticed that. That's hilarious. The thing is, like, I was like, is that really stupid, or is it like I feel like I know people who would do that.
Sure. Yeah.
But they'd like put time into it. You know, they'd have like a craft day where they're like, all right, I'm gonna relax and I'm gonna make a sign for my garden.
To be fair, that could be like a gift. That could have been a gift.
Yeah. And so she tries to hit on Ben, and this is super weird.
Yeah, this entire scene is just kind of uncomfortable.
My first thought was just like, in general, this is weird. Like, when you really think about it, like the idea of like these like love interest characters hitting on masked superheroes that they don't know, like that's really weird when you really think about it. Like MJ trying to kiss Spider-Man, who's this dude in a mask that she doesn't know.
Right.
But then like, all right, that's just superhero trope, move past it. But then there's this weird thing where it's like she feels like she knows Ben, and it's like, no shit. But then that got me thinking, like, does he do like a Batman kind of thing where he like changes his voice? How do the vocal cords for clones work? Shouldn't he sound like Peter? Does for that matter, is it ever established that like Peter uses a Batman voice?
I think the idea with Pete is that the mask somehow muffles his voice.
Yeah.
I always took it as the fact that too, like Peter's much more jokey inside the costume, so that was also kind of a cover.
Yeah, so, yeah. Kind of like the whole like bumbling Clark Kent kind of thing.
Yeah. With Ben, the way I guess my headcanon how clones should work, they look the same. They should sound the same.
Yeah.
What I really don't understand is, and this is going back to the first arc, where, and this is just like how I remember it as a kid. I swear to God, like this was like the first issue where like Ben got the Scarlet Spider costume. I swear to God, he had bleached blonde hair. Like he bleached his hair blonde. Dude,
that different. Yeah, that's coming up later.
Okay.
Yeah, that's something he does later. But so then the question is, when he gets to that point, when Ben Reilly like mostly establishes himself as a separate person, he dyes his hair. Do you support Ben Reilly, Betty Brant?
I mean, her husband's passed away, right?
Yeah, she's a widow, thanks to an unfortunate story.
Yeah.
I mean, if they get along and they're fine with it, then yeah, I don't care.
I think it's just so weird, but like at the same time, like like a part of me is like, oh, if they can somehow make this work, like the two of the clones actually living alongside each other, like you gotta ship him with someone eventually, and like it's like weird, but also like works enough that it's like, oh, why not just give him one of Peter's exes?
If they can make it work, I don't have a real problem with it. I mean, doubt they can make it work.
Yeah,
it's only weird because they look alike. It's not Peter, so even in personality wise, it's not. So,
well, yeah, I don't know. It is weird. We'll see how far that goes.
Yeah.
Within this arc, we'll be talking about it this episode, and then
it seems like he's more interested in Gabrielle.
Well, is he
in his
I
apartment.
mean, yeah. I mean, she shows up once in the story, and he kind of brushes her off. But yeah, Gabrielle is his neighbor, and she asks him out at some point in this arc, and maybe they'll get back to that too. Um, so and then Grim Hunter creeps on Betty, and he just missed Ben, but he's gonna keep her alive or something to possibly use her as bait.
Every time this guy appears on the scene, I audibly groan.
He's so bad. Like, he's just not interesting at all.
He's so bad. He's so boring.
So now's a good time to mention that these first two issues are flip books, and I believe Mike and I talked about this off camera between episodes. He was asking me about the flip book parts of these, and at first I just assumed that they were some of the Ben Reilly backstory stuff that we read before, but I was actually wrong. The flip book parts for these two issues are 15-page text excerpts from the Ultimate Spider-Man novel.
Oh,
Which
What?
obviously years before that adjective would be used for the whole alternate universe imprint and a Spider-Man title. But I thought that was weird. So they're like previewing a Spider-Man novel. I wonder how many people actually, like even like diehard Spider-Man fans, actually read those 30 pages of from the Spider-Man novel, which I assume would, I mean, I'm nothing against prose, obviously, but I'm assuming the Spider-Man novel was in 1995 was terrible. So then, also in the first issue, at some point when Ben is like in public and people remark the Scarlet Spider, ooh, he's a hero. Like Ben basically says like he doesn't like the Scarlet Spider name, but like he doesn't seem like rabid about it. But then in the second part, he's like, I'm gonna beat the shit out of Ken Ellis for naming me that. It's like that jumped out to me. I don't know if I was just like reading it oddly or something, but it seemed like he was like, oh, I don't like that, but whatever. And now he's like really angry at this stupid name.
It seemed weirdly aggressive, yeah.
But I mean, it's also kind of interesting just in general that he hates the name, because that's
It's not
kind
a
of
good
like,
name.
yeah, I mean that's kind of like we were talking about, like his costume is like sort of intentionally stupid as well.
Yeah.
They just never got around to fixing it. But he'll also get a new code name eventually. And then so Ben Reilly creeps on the Daily Bugle. Why is he here again? Is he trying to find? He's trying to find Ken, right?
I think he's trying to find Ken. And this conversation with Jonah is also really weird. He's like, if you don't stop calling me the Scarlet Spider, I might have my lawyers contact you. And then he swings off like, oh, good burn. And I just don't.
Well, first of all right, superheroes can't really represent themselves in court with lawyers and stuff like that. You know, a lawyer's not going to take up a superhero.
No.
At least that used to be the case. I don't know the specifics because I haven't read it. But apparently, Charles Soule, who has a background in law, in his Daredevil run, he somehow set up something where now, as of like 2016 or 2017, superheroes in the Marvel universe can represent themselves in court or some shit.
Wow.
But also,
turn my lights on here because the thing.
But also, like his whole point with Jameson is like, stop calling me that name. But what it ends up is like clearly Jameson is just gonna double down on using that name now.
Yeah.
Just ensuring that it's gonna stick. Then we jump back to the Grim Hunter, and we get some narration and the narration tells us that Craven the Elder, you could call him, his inheritance went to his only son. And Matt, is this his only son?
No, Craven has a huge family.
Yeah,
there are Cravens all over the place. There are more Cravens than there are. I don't know where I'm going with that. Kardashians. That was a bad joke.
So this is fake news. Craven has another son, and his other son is the one who at one point went to Hollywood and tried to become an actor, and then also later turned into some kind of, what is it? It's like a lion werewolf, I think. Some kind of werewolf.
A werelion?
Something like that. Yeah.
And eventually in 3 years, on this podcast we will get to that as well. That's in Grim Hunt. We will not be reading Craven. I forget what the subtitle is. The Craven Hollywood book, though. Unfortunately.
Get Craven.
Yeah, Get Craven.
Yeah.
I thought it was like Get Hollywood or something.
I'd be down to read that.
No, you're not. No one's dying to read that.
No.
So back to the MJ subplot. She's at the doctor. And it's super clear to us as readers at this point.
We've known for so long now.
But she thinks she might have an ulcer, which she's in for a surprise.
Yeah, and she's here going to see the doctor in her best blue lingerie, which is okay.
Yeah,
I noticed that. Wow.
Yeah, I also didn't like. I guess she has like a hospital gown on.
No, she was putting
she was putting her clothes back on.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Because I was like, that is the skimpiest like cut off hospital gown I've ever seen. I thought that was what they were going for.
I really like talking the art wise for a second. I really like the art in both of these books. I like it better than the Peter books.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more consistent across the board. And I think where the art really shines in these books are like the scenes of Ben swinging around the city, because he's usually swinging around at night, and the colors really pop on the buildings and the windows. Whoever's coloring these books are doing a fantastic job, really making it all pop out.
And I think the lines are really clean, which is something that's not always a thing in the 90s.
Yeah, and I mean, these two titles are definitely more cohesive. Mm-hmm. That's definitely the case.
And I don't know what it is about Ben's just blank white eyes, but I think they work so well.
Oh man, I don't.
Well, I'm kind of in the middle. I want to come back to that when we get to kind of the end where the art switches up just a little bit, because there's a comment I have on that. But then we're cutting back to Kane, and he's beating up some people for no real reason. Also,
is Kane wearing a suit, or is this just part of his skin now as his mutation?
Doesn't he describe it as a suit that he made in like the last arc or 2 arcs before? I think it's a suit.
Can't remember.
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's just a ridiculous suit. So Kane
he fights these goons who all look the same and all dress the same for no real reason. I assume it's because they're clones, and he hates them because they're clones.
Yeah.
Right? That's what's going on here.
So the narration also claims that he's beating up people in an area of New York that the cops don't even go to.
Yeah.
And now I've got a little dumb tangent here. So does such an area exist in New York circa 1995? I don't really know. None of the three of us are New Yorkers.
No.
But I think this is similar to the whole like joke about how Hell's Kitchen, where Daredevil's from, is like not remotely a gritty place anymore. And Hell's Kitchen is now known as it's now known as Clinton, and it's like one of the most popular neighborhoods.
It was a booming place for a good while. It's actually one of the more affluent, rich neighborhoods in Manhattan now.
So some New York history. So Rudy Giuliani.
I can't wait. I got some things to say as well then.
Rudy Giuliani was DA, and he cleaned up the mob in the 1980s. I mean, to be fair, it was pretty easy because the mafia doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
Then Giuliani became mayor of New York in January 1994, and this story is probably like a cover date of like January, February 1995 at this point. So they came out in late 1994. And Giuliani installed a new police commissioner to stamp down on crime, and he drastically increased the standard of living across the whole city. And so the question is whether that had really taken into effect yet. But then, on the other hand, there's a neighborhood on the border of Brooklyn and Queens called The Hole. And this is one of those like Wikipedia pages that you stumble upon, and like I've always been fascinated by it. The Hole is 30 feet below the surrounding land. And obviously, because that, it suffers from like ridiculous flooding. And for decades, it was used as a dumping ground for bodies by the mob. And there's like estimated to be like dozens of bodies that are still unrecovered somewhere there. And it's like this really weird neighborhood. It's patrolled by guys who like go around on horses, and they have like cowboy hats and whips, like in fucking Brooklyn. And Mike Tyson spent some of his childhood there, on the rough streets. And so, my headcanon, this is where Kane is right now.
Well,
I buy it.
Finishing up on Rudy Giuliani, to really know the impact of Rudy Giuliani, he lowered crime in New York City by 15%. Batman didn't lower crime in Gotham City by 15%.
He also, I don't know, he was mayor during 9/11. But then, I believe during the last presidential election, I think he made some comment, and people made fun of him because he made some comment about 9/11, basically implying that he forgot that he was mayor during 9/11 or something like that.
Like what, 80 now?
Yeah, he's pretty old at this point, probably. So moving on, we learned that Peter, Ben, and Kane, they have some kind of like mental link. And this is one of those sequences where we see Peter Parker sleeping. I don't understand this.
Huddle.
He's sleeping in costume too.
Is this how clones work? I don't know.
Yeah, clones have like a mental link, I think.
And then we officially meet Ben Reilly's scientist buddy. And I think I mentioned him before. Well, he's been like mentioned by name like 3 times already, but this is our first time actually meeting him. And I think before I mispronounced his name. His name is apparently Seaward Trainer, not Seward Trainer.
Trainer.
And the character is named after Howard Mackey's father-in-law. And now, for no reason, I want to know if Howard Mackey is still married to that woman. Is Seaward Trainer still Mackey's father-in-law? Did he have a good relationship with his father-in-law? Or is this like a slight dig? Like, did he think his father-in-law was like a dorky dude? I don't know.
We should ask Howard Mackey if he wants to be on the show, and then we can ask him.
We have to get
That'd
a few
be great.
more. We got to get a few more episodes in before we start trying to get the big guest stars. But I'm totally down to like start tweeting like Howard Mackey.
Yeah, definitely.
And so Ben wants to know: is he going to get like skin cancer like Kane?
Yeah.
Which again, I don't. I mean, the way this cloning thing works, I don't understand it.
Oh, I have no idea.
I'm curious about exactly what type of scientist Seaward Trainer is. I don't know if that's been established. I also want to know what sort of scientist raids Scott Summers' wardrobe, like that.
He looks like he stole Scott's bandolier, but is wearing like some sort of rip-off S.H.I.E.L.D. agent outfit.
It's really weird. Yeah.
What is Kirk Connors? Is he just like considered like a biologist, like a generic biologist, and then he specializes in like reptilians?
I believe so. Yeah, he's like a Would that be considered a marine biologist? No, that not.
No.
It's not water life.
But because in one of the previous stories, Connors was I mean, I guess it makes sense because of his whole like lizard thing, that maybe like cell regeneration. But Connors did the tests on Peter to determine if he was a clone.
Right.
And so I guess just scientists. I mean, it's such a fascinating area. I feel like all scientists like they know a little bit about cloning, enough to like test whether someone's a clone.
I have to assume, yeah.
So let's just go with Seaward Trainer being a marine biologist.
Sure, that works. And that explains why he's wearing some sort of like wetsuit.
Yeah. So then the Grim Hunter, he did end up getting to use his bait, and he jumps in on Ben and Betty. I'm pretty sure, like, is this like right before like she tries to almost kiss him or something?
This is the second time they've nearly kissed while he has the mask on. I don't know what she's trying to do.
Yeah. I don't know how that works. And then our buddy Jacob Raven, the detective from Utah, a good old Mormon boy. He's transferred to the NYPD, and this cop, dude, this guy's got a great haircut.
Is it?
No.
I don't. What? Honestly, I don't know how that physically works. I don't know what it's supposed to look like in real space.
It's like a bowl cut, but then like the temples all the way around is completely shaved.
It's one of the worst things I've ever seen.
And then we get very specific dialogue. The terrible haircut cop says that if the perp is a native New Yorker and has ever been fingerprinted, they're going to get him. But there's clones, so they all have the same fingerprints. Maybe, I don't know how cloning works. So I wonder what that's going to lead to. And then so Grim Hunter and Ben Reilly are finally face to face. And I liked one element of this where it's like the opposite of Venom, where Venom like off the bat was like through his like different sensing stuff, and also because of the pact, he was like, "You're not Spider-Man." But the Grim Hunter assumes that Ben is Spider-Man based on his smell, but also like, how does he know what Spider-Man smells like? I guess his dad like kept like a dirty rag or something.
Vials of his sweat.
And so we learned that clones, they have the same fingerprints, they have the same smell.
Mm-hmm.
But then
and that's something else, another inconsistency, because I believe it's this issue that ends with him saying, "Oh, you're not the real one because you fight differently," and then the next issue starts with Ben saying he realized I'm not the real one because I smell different.
That is, they just completely ignore what happened in like the conclusion of the last issue. But so Grim Hunter's like, oh, you fight differently. But also like if he smells exactly the same, like maybe he just like is switching up his fighting style. Like I feel like you should trust one more than the other.
I would think so.
But so he just runs away and he's like, oh, I gotta find the real Spider-Man. And then I did like how Betty just has a fucking revolver. That she she has a gun. Like Grim Hunter leaves, and then like the last like two panels, Betty's just like holding a revolver.
Listen, you can never be too safe with all those weirdos around.
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine that she started carrying that after Ned died. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Also, that would mean that she got a permit to carry in New York, which is next to impossible.
Well, is it next to impossible post Giuliani? We don't know.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
We don't know about the gun laws circa 1995.
Quick, look them up.
And all right, so moving into the second half where we get a few changes. Did you guys notice really any difference in the Web of Spider-Man issue? I with like the art change and the writing, I couldn't tell a difference at all.
I
Not
really
really,
couldn't tell
no.
the difference. I liked the art though. Art still
Yeah,
looked good.
I think I think actually, if anything, I'd say for this art change on Web of Spider-Man, if anything, it's like possibly a slight downgrade, but it might have just been that I was paying attention to it more. I thought some of the faces were kind of off.
The
Um,
faces are a little
The
cartoony.
faces in this one issue are weird. But especially in these first couple pages, I noticed it mostly like the guy with the I don't know, the goatee thing, and this girl they're harassing have weird faces.
Yeah, they look cartoony.
all right, so that brings us to what's going on. I guess it's just customary in New York to beat up homeless people, because that was a plot a few issues ago too. Um, and so these thugs are beating up this homeless woman, and Kane beats the shit out of them, possibly kills a bunch of them, but then he crushes this woman's most prized belongings. So it's like, what was the damn point?
Because he's hardcore, man.
Yeah, they had to establish, Kane. He's down to help people, but also he's still kind of a dick. He's that guy you love to hate.
Not your dad's hero.
That's right. It's like Venom.
So we see a quick instance here also of Ben Reilly just like actually saving people, which I feel like we've hardly seen either of them like actually like doing like normal superhero stuff so far. Like it's mostly just dealing with dumb villains and like plot devices and stuff.
Well, if Billy hears you say that, he's gonna take that as you calling Venom a dumb villain.
It was yeah. But part of this, so he saves this woman from getting hit by a taxi, and the reason she's going to get hit by a taxi is because it's snowing. And now I'm really looking forward to seeing whether it's actually snowing in the Peter Parker books as well, because they're running alongside this. So if the second half of if those Peter Parker books, if it's not snowing in those, I'm going to be very angry, because that's really bad editing. I mean, ideally, every single Marvel comic that came out this month there would be snow on the ground, but I don't think you can trust. You can't trust them in 1995 to do that.
If it's not snowing in the Peter issues, we need to write a letter to Fingeroth.
Yep.
Ask him what's going on here.
It was supposed to be snowing in these books.
He's at PhillyCon like almost every year. So.
Really?
Oh, perfect. Yeah. We can talk to him in person.
I almost bought like a copy of Darkhawk Classic and had him sign it, but then I was like, no, I'll buy something I actually want. I don't know. Yeah. So then I like a little dumb detail. The cop, this dumb haircut cop, he has a basketball hoop, like a tiny basketball hoop attached to his trash can. I don't know if you guys caught that. That's kind of funny.
No, I didn't see that. That's great.
And so they've figured out the fingerprints, and they're going to go get them.
Yeah,
I don't know who they're going to get.
Once again, this is the scene where Grim Hunter is naked in the middle of his foyer, just huffing an incense in the nude.
Well, He read Kraven's Last Hunt, so he's just doing what Kraven did.
Also, I'd really like, we have a buddy Nelson who gives us a physique critique. I would like to see a physique critique on this one.
Well, maybe it's almost worth doing like a special episode. That could be a 0.5 episode.
Bonus episode, just have Nelson, hey, look at all this and tell us how wrong it looks.
So now Grim Hunter's now looking for the real Spider-Man. So Ben is going to stake out Peter's apartment, and he moves because a chimney was blocking his view. And then who shows up to just fucking demolish the chimney? Kane is he just destroys this chimney.
For no reason.
But also Ben like leaves to like go to like a rooftop like not that far away. I don't know. I feel like a brick chimney being destroyed with a punch. I feel like that's really loud. Like
Yeah.
Ben didn't hear that.
I would expect it to be.
But then they do come across each other and they fight a bit, and who cares?
He destroys Ben almost as quickly and easily as he destroyed that chimney.
Yeah. And Ben basically runs away, sort of. He gets out of his grasp. And then Kane and the Grim Hunter are staring each other down. Also, I don't know if you guys saw the tease at the end of this third issue. It mentioned the Jackal.
Yes, they did. And I got kind of excited and also kind of like worried.
So the Jackal's coming up. I think that'll be in the arc after when we go back to Peter.
Okay.
So that'll be 2 episodes, right?
Yeah. I believe. I don't know. It's down the pipeline somewhere. And so now we move into the fourth part, and this is where I think the art change here was totally noticeable. I don't know what you guys thought.
I agree. Yeah.
Once again, I liked it though.
Yeah, I really liked it. So this is drawn. So up until this point, Tom Lyle has been drawing this book, and I'm pretty sure this is just a fill-in, but and I've enjoyed Tom Lyle, but I noticed this like immediately, and some of it might be that snow, like there's a little bit of a different setting and everything like that, but this is Mike Manley, and he's definitely a '90s artist, but like Matt was saying, like the lines and everything like that, like his style is not insane or anything like that, like where you'd expect from a lot like the school of Liefeld and Lee and everything like that.
Yeah,
and
it's a little more tamed down, and I really like that. Yeah. I appreciate it.
So Mike may be interested that Mike Manley had a year-long run on Batman with Doug Monk, and that ran through Nightfall. And
I wish I could comment more because I'm in the darkness.
And then
I really liked the art this issue.
Mike Manley co-created and then penciled and inked the first 2 years of Darkhawk with Danny Fingeroth.
I didn't know that.
Who's the lead editor on the Spider-Man line, like as we mentioned. So I wonder if this was like, yo, buddy, we got you on this fill-in. And Manley also had a run on Quasar, and he would ink Power of Shazam. And right now, he draws the daily Phantom strip.
Really?
Yep. Also, the cover of this page, the cover of this issue is Kane, Scarlet Spider, Grim Hunter. One will die. And you can't, I mean, I guess like they have to know that people know, but like you can't do those teases and like make it super, super obvious. I mean, I guess it's conceivable that Kane could have died in this issue, maybe, since it hasn't been around that long.
But we know he's not dead.
Or the son of Kraven the Hunter is going to kill the new Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Ben Reilly is going to die right now.
Yeah.
But Mike was talking about some of these like swinging through the city pages. There's a splash page in this issue of Ben swinging through, and there's the snow. And I thought I really liked that page.
That page is poster worthy.
And there's also throughout this issue.
I would have a poster of Scarlet Spider, yeah.
Throughout this issue, there's also like they do some. I think less of this is like Mike Manley, but there's like some interesting stuff going on with like the coloring with the snow, where they have like it's almost like in a few panels it's almost like a motion blur kind of thing or something like that, where like the figures like get kind of like streaked or something with the snow flying around. I don't know, but the art's pretty cool.
I think it's good that you brought up the snow. I think it's a really cool effect, and it adds it makes the fight between Kane and Kraven more dynamic. I think that's a fight that I wouldn't care about at all.
It's like
if it wasn't for this kind of neat art.
But remember the fight in Uncanny X-Men where the X-Men are like trying to get back to New York and they're stranded in Canada and they end up fighting Alpha Flight in the blizzard?
Yes. Yeah.
Kind of like that, but like not as good at all.
It's not quite that good. No.
Yeah, and I mean, just generally with like the weather effects, like we've read a lot of John Romita Jr. already with his famous rain scenes, and I'm
I
assuming
feel we've had more inclement weather in these episodes in the reading since the Clone Saga started than actual just normal days of New York.
Also, Mike and Matt disagreed on Ben Reilly's eyes earlier, and I think in this issue, just this issue, they did like something slightly different with the eyes, where like they started using like an almost Zipatone like thing where there was like actual texture. There's like actual texture on the eyes.
Yep.
Whereas like up to this point, and I don't know if they're gonna keep doing that or remember to do that, or if it's literally just this art team on this issue. But otherwise, like it just seems like he has a white area in his red jumpsuit. So I liked that as well, that artistic element.
What's also cool what they're doing with the spider on the like the hoodie is like they'll black out the behind it and then they'll put the other in light blue so it looks like it's illuminated a little bit.
Yeah. So then Matt was talking the Kane and Craven Grim Hunter fight. Kane destroys another chimney in this issue.
That's all you need to know.
And the thing is, at this point, like he destroys 2 chimneys in one story, so I want it to become a running gag, where Kane just destroys chimneys. Like I want him to be like he runs into Ben Reilly and he's standing on a roof and like he's leaning on a chimney, and then like he says some one-liner and just punches the chimney, like not even looking at it. And so the thing is also like, again, like these are 4-issue arcs. They don't really need to be. So we get some recycling. So Ben goes back. He checks again on Peter and MJ. And then Seaward Trainer finally arrives. And I thought the thing is like I didn't totally read the tease in the last issue. I just saw the word jackal. So when like a scientist dude in shadow jumps out at Ben Reilly, I'm like, oh wait, is this the jackal?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so no, yeah, Seaward Trainer's back, but then he collides with Ben later, because Ben runs away to restock, which I feel like he did that in the last arc too. I mean, I guess that's a Spider-Man thing, but like, I feel like, do you really need to restock your web fluid every single story?
Apparently.
You do.
Also, again, this might have just been me, but they use this thing where like Ben Reilly has like this green stuff around his head because he's supposed to be dizzy or something like that.
He's supposed to be concussed or something.
Yeah, but I had no idea what the heck that was until like they literally explained it. I thought it was like mist-colored snow, honestly.
I could tell what it was.
Yeah, I don't know. It's probably the same, but and then Kane, up to this point, he's had no reason to fight the Grim Hunter, but then he's like, oh, let me think of a reason. Maybe he's gonna kill Mary Jane. And I still don't know why he cares about Mary Jane, but whatever. But I like Kane has a dumb clone line where he says, all things concerning Spider-Man concern me. His life is mine.
Yeah, because he's the clone and
and then here's the thing. So then obviously Ben Reilly jumps in the middle of the fight again. And he shoots his stingers at Kane. And it like shuts down Kane's muscles. But literally in the last issue, didn't he like shoot Kane in the face with them and they bounced off?
They bounced off, yeah. But
So,
they
like,
worked this time. He made him sharper. He sharpened them up.
he hit him in like a joint where like his costume doesn't. That was weird. And Kane falls in the water. They're at this point they're like out on the outskirts of the city, and they're like near the woods. And Ben jumps in to save Kane from the frozen lake, and somehow he loses him underwater.
Yeah.
And the Grim Hunter runs away. And so that's the end of Ben for this story. Is Ben Reilly swings away, covered in like freezing water, while it's snowing, swinging through the city. He's got to be like, that's got to be so uncomfortable. He's got to be freezing.
Yep. I can't wait for the next arc where Ben is dealing with hypothermia.
Yeah, I mean, he should have like borrowed some homeless person's coat and then took a cab.
And as we look for the next issue, it's Spider-Man Web of Death, Part 1 of 4.
Yeah.
With Lady Ock.
But then, so Ben screws off, but then Kane and Grim Hunter face to face again, and Kane snaps his neck.
Yep.
So we know who died here. That cover wasn't fooling anyone.
Yeah, and then Vlad's friend, I don't know his name. He like cries over his dead body, and he says a plan of vengeance begins to form. So I guess
now, Matt, did you wonder whether he gets his vengeance?
I am wondering if Kraven the Hunter's son's friend comes back.
I can tell you that he never appears in a single Spider-Man comic ever again.
That's amazing.
But this isn't his last appearance. He's used again a few years after this as a like somewhat major villain in Mark Waid and Andy Kubert's Kazar run.
What in the hell? Why do you know this?
Well, I mean, I looked it up, but also Mark Waid's Kazar run, I recommended it. It's a nice 13 issues.
No one cares about Kazar.
Kazar's cool. And all right, so I mentioned some of this in a previous episode, but around this time, Tom DeFalco is removed as editor-in-chief.
Mm-hmm.
And Marvel does their dumb thing where they put 5 editor-in-chiefs at the same time. And Bob Budiansky was the Spider-Man editor-in-chief. And he's known more broadly for writing the Transformers comics at Marvel and like basically creating most of their names. But Danny Fingeroth is still the group editor of Spider-Man, so like I don't really like. It seems like there's a lot of redundancy and overlap when you have someone like an editor-in-chief for just the Spider-Man titles, but then you still have like what you already had as your like executive editor for the Spider-Man titles.
Right.
But then I was trying to think like, but the thing is like, what other titles? So I mean, Budiansky has to be in charge of more titles than Fingeroth. So it's like, what else are they bringing in besides the obvious like Spider-Man stuff? And so I think I couldn't find like any like list where they like split up like this group has these titles and this group has these titles. But I think New Warriors may have possibly gotten tied in with the Spider line, which doesn't make any sense. It should have been like with the Avengers line, which was called the Universe line. But I question
joins
that,
them, doesn't he?
Yeah, I question that because the New Warriors gets dragged in, and Ben Reilly joins them. So look forward to that. We'll be reading some New Warrior stuff eventually.
Cool. Speedball.
But it's not even the good New Warrior stuff, because most of New Warriors was written by Fabian Nicieza, the uncle-in-law of one of our friends, Damone. And
was it? I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. Damone's like sister is married to Mariano Nicieza's daughter. No, son. Or something like that. So we were hanging out with Fabian Nicieza's brother at PhillyCon this summer. Yeah, weren't you there? Were you there? I don't know. I don't think you were there.
I don't think I don't know why I wouldn't have been, but I don't know. I don't remember.
But then at some point Nicieza got like basically like kicked out of Marvel. Um, is and I think the rest of New Warriors are written by like Eric or Aaron Skolnick, who I think actually came back recently. I think he might have done a few issues of like Spider-Man Deadpool or some crap. But yeah, so the editorial is really weird at Marvel at this point. Also, around this issue, fans in the letter columns start questioning whether Peter Parker is the clone. And the editors respond with, anything can happen.
Sure can, and it will.
And so yeah, this Ben Reilly arc was called Web of Life. And so the next Peter Parker arc, which ran alongside it, is of course called Web of Death. And if you remember, last we saw him, he was poisoned by the Vulture.
Right.
So we'll see how he deals with that. And as Mike said, I don't that's not actually, I don't think that's actually Lady Octopus. That's Stunner, but like for some reason you can see the octopus arms. I don't know. But tune in next time for that. You guys have any final thoughts?
On the cover of it, it says the last Spidey Doc Ock saga of all time begins here. Oh, if they only knew.
Yeah. But for the time, I mean, we'll discuss it next time. But for the time, this was the final Doc Ock story. All right. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.